I haven't gotten all the videos out of my system, so here is a reading of this post I just found on Tumblr by Biggest Gaudiest Patronuses, a popular shitposter on Tumblr.com. Hello, Tumblr. For the bargain price of $6.66, I will present to you one of my top 5 most embarrassing childhood misadventures. Okay, so here's the setup. When I was like 7, my parents moved us into a house where my sisters and I shared the upstairs, which was split into 2 bedrooms. I got the separate room because I was the most territorial, the eldest. Both bedrooms had these weird little attached attic space things that were essentially unfinished closets. They were padded to the rim with this stuff. Later, I found that the company that sells it had an advertising deal with the Pink Panther cartoons. That detail is completely unrelated to this story. FYI, that pink stuff is fiberglass insulation. My mom, presumably at some point, almost certainly told me not to touch it, and that it contained crushed glass, and that I absolutely should not touch it. Listen to me, dead name. Look at me. The pink stuff is dangerous, so do not touch it. I say presumably because I was unmedicated at the time, and my super active 7-year-old brain decided to filter out that unnecessary information. So in my defense, that stuff is fluffy. It may contain glass, but soda bottles contain glass and they don't hurt to touch, and neither did this stuff. It was pretty soft, actually. I would occasionally pat it with my bare hands while hiding in the dark, swaying back and forth, pretending that I had been kidnapped and was being held hostage in the belly of a pirate ship. And it was fine. So after a while, my brain just sort of put the pink stuff in the category of don't eat it or anything, and you'll probably be fine. I would later wish, above all wishes, that I had heeded my mother's warning. Okay, that's part 1. I gotta go make breakfast. Okay, I had banned Tim Angels. Part 2. A pertinent detail about my bedroom attic. It had a crawl space. Just a tiny little black tunnel that disappeared into the house beyond. I, naturally, one day became curious about where exactly it disappeared to and how far. My curiosity was compounded by the fact that the crawl space headed directly towards my sister's bedroom. Upon further reflection, it was very possible that the crawl space, in fact, connected both attics. I should at this point discuss my sister's bedroom attic. While mine was mostly used for storage and sitting alone in the dark listening to scary radio shows that gave me nightmares, my sisters had rather brilliantly decided to repurpose theirs into a clubhouse/stuffed animal storage facility. From what I had seen, it was also stuffed to bursting with goddamn stuffed animals. It also had, I believe, a little tea table, and they had drawn on the walls, all in all, very makeshift and cozy. Sorry, I'm not good at reading out loud. I say from what I had seen, because generally speaking, I wasn't allowed in the stuffed animal storage facility. It was their space. And of course, there is not more territorial group of people than children of the age group 12 and under. Also, I was the least popular member of the household, except possibly for one of the hamsters. So the scene has been set. I am a 7-year-old delinquent who just happens to be obsessed with espionage and bank robberies, and I have discovered a secret tunnel from my bedroom to my sister's forbidden clubhouse. I consider myself a victim of circumstance. The events that followed really wrote themselves. Of course, I went into the crawl space. What possible other ending could this story have? One Sunday afternoon, when I had nothing better to do, I decided to test my hypothesis that I was narrow enough to fit into the itty-bitty tunnel. And I was. as an ancient and world-weary 8-year-old, couldn't have done it, but I was just stick-like enough to manage. Excuse me. I strapped a flashlight to my wrist and got on my hands and knees, and crawled through that fucker. This, it transpired, was a colossal undertaking, as I was only technically small enough to fit into the wall. There was little additional room to, for example, bend my knees and elbows. I ended up propelling myself forward mostly by inching along on my toes and wiggling like an eel. It was not very effective. I got stuck several times. I tried to go turn back several times, but it turns out there is no feasible way to turn around in a tunnel that is exactly as wide and as tall as the width of your shoulders. In one of my darker moments, I was stuck between the bathroom wall, probably quite close to the toilet. It occurred to me that I had no actual proof that there would be an opening on the other end. This presented certain concerns. It turns out it is rather difficult to drag yourself backwards by your toes. Side note, that is fucking terrifying. I persevered, propelled by panic, and most of all, a lack of other options. 30 minutes and 10 yards later, I confirmed there was indeed an opening on the other end, which indeed opened to my sister's attic, because I was indeed a veritable genius. It was at this point that I discovered my sisters were not in their bedroom. They had, in fact, at some point decided to go downstairs, meaning I would not be able to burst out of the attic to the shock and astoundment of all bystanders. I waited patiently for almost an entire minute and then, observed only by the glossy plastic eyes of a hundred passionless plush toys, I tiptoed away and hobbled back to my bedroom. This was naturally the beginning of the most woeful, misery-filled fortnight of my short and sorry life. Okay, I'm gonna pause it for a second. Okay, we're back. Final part. So I returned to my daily life, content with the knowledge that I had once again escaped the consequences of my actions, like the protagonist I so truly was. Until the next day. Monday evening. Oh, Monday evening. After a long, tedious day at school, I lay peacefully in bed, content with the expectation of a well-deserved rest. Set down your constant burden, human, and rest thy weary soul. But then, a sensation of dread swept over me. It had begun. The itching. Did I mention that the crawl space was lined with fiberglass insulation? As it turns out, dragging yourself against 30 feet of finely crushed glass does, in fact, beget consequences. Microscopic shards of glass do not care if you were wearing clothing at the time. They go where they choose. And that miserable Sunday afternoon of my wretched folly, they had chosen to embed themselves directly into my skin. What words to describe the suffering of the next 2 weeks? Reader, I took so many showers. So many. Hot showers, first thing in the morning, directly after school. And again before dinner. And right before bed. There was never any hot water left. I soaked, I scrubbed, I wept like the pitiless wretch I so truly was reduced to. And the itching would not stop. Everywhere. It was everywhere. Arms and legs and torso and face. Oh my stars, it was so bad. I rubbed up like a cat against brick walls and desk corners. In furniture, I scratched. I prayed and discovered that the gods are either powerless or indifferent to our suffering. Or perhaps were moderately entertained. Nothing happened. 2 weeks of itch before my skin finally expelled the invaders. It was misery. My sisters were unamused and somewhat bored by the matter and told me not to go in their room. Excuse me, I had to take another break. Where was I? Oh yeah. My mom was unimpressed, and me, I was not excused from school. Probably due to the fact that as an undiagnosed autistic kid in chronic discomfort, the adults around me were already in the habit of ignoring my constant complaints. Which, how fucked up is that my base level of discomfort was so high that the adults around me didn't believe that I was in more pain than usual when 80% of my skin was already embedded with glass. Anyway, long story short, don't touch the pink stuff. Advice from people in the notes. When it comes to showers, cold water works best to get the fiberglass shards off. There's some dispute about whether warm water opens the pores or if that's a myth. Excuse me. You can carefully place duct tape or electrical tape against the skin to peel off the shards. Wash your clothes in apple cider vinegar to get rid of the glass / avoid it spreading to the rest of your laundry. Do not breathe this shit. Wear a face mask and respirator and goggles and protective clothes if you're gonna be working anywhere near it. I reiterate, do not touch the pink stuff or pain will be your only fortune. All your joy will melt in your hands and lament requiems at your feet. Possessed Bisexual says, oh shit, do not let my origin story become yours. Sounds like a raw-ass quote, and it's from the tags of a post about pink insulation glass shards. Magenta Cheese Stick 3 says, I prayed and discovered that the gods are either powerless or indifferent to our suffering is the one I noticed. The Queen of Fire and Ice said, pain will be your only fortune and all your joy will melt in your hands and lament requiems at your feet. This sounds like an Irish curse muttered by the old lady at church on Sunday. Sappho's side chick. Love that name. Set down your constant burden, human, and rest thy weary soul. Sounds like something from Tolkien. That being said, I don't know why I did this, but I did. See you tomorrow.